What's going on, you guys? I'm here today with a new video, and I'm here to talk about why Lost World Dinos of all decks won LCS number 7, the 3v3 YCS that just took place this weekend. If you guys are new here, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. You guys will be notified whenever I upload. You'll also be notified when I stream over on Twitch. Link is in the description. Of course, if you want to purchase any of the cards that you see here in order to play this deck in real life, if you're fortunate enough to be able to play at locals or in the remote duels, please use my TCG player link in the description below. A portion of what you spend goes back to the channel. It helps me out and I really do appreciate it. And last but not least, if you want to further support the channel, consider joining my Patreon. Link is in the description. You get access to a bunch of exclusive videos only there, as well as awesome rewards, so consider that. Yeah, this is pretty crazy, you guys. Everyone thought Dragon Link was going to just absolutely dominate this entire event, and the finals was literally three dinosaur players. This is one of the lists that was featured. It was piloted by Gabriel Netz. So shout out to him and his team. His two teammates, Gabe and Hash as well, both played dinos as well. So this literally was won by the same deck. It's pretty crazy. I think a lot of people are taken by storm by the fact that dinosaurs won this event because everyone had their money banked on Dragon Link. And in the finals, it was said that out of the 6 players participating, that 4 of the 6 decks were dinos. So it was clear what the dominant deck was of this event. As always, we're going to go through the deck list. I only have one of the deck lists. However, I did get some information from the players directly that the only changes in the main deck were some of the other players chose not to play set rotation, and there were just some differences in the extra deck. Now that's neither here nor there whether, you know, the extra deck comes up or not. Mostly the only card they're ever really summoning is Dolka, or if they're making Link Kribo into Secure Guard in order to go for the UTC with the double evolution pill. You have those options as well. When the lists do surface though, because I believe the Decidefuls, you know, shout out to them, I got my information from their page. Once they feature the list on their page or on their YouTube, I'll definitely link those in a pinned comment so you guys can get more information. But it's pretty awesome. Congratulations to the 3 of them. 3v3 is awesome. You get to play with your best friends, and even though it is online, you are reliant on your teammates pulling through. So it's pretty crazy what dinosaurs were able to do for this event. But we will get into the list. Again, this is Gabriel Netz's list, so this will give you guys the general blueprint of what these players were trying to do with dinosaurs. So of course, you got the 2 copies of Archosaur. For hand traps, you got triple copies of Ash Blossom, 2 baby Cerosaurus, the 1 Pankratrops, obviously the best card in the game, 3 copies of Miscellaneous Saurus, triple copies of Nibiru, the 1 copy of Petite, 3 copies of Gamma, the 3 copies of Oviraptor, 2 copies of the Bossman Ultimate Conductor, and of course the driver to go with the Gamma. The spells, we got double copies of Double Evolution Pill, triple Fossil Dig, triple copies of Lost World, 2 copies of Mystic Mine, triple copies of Pot of Extrav, the 1 copy of Set Rotation, the 1 copy of Terraforming, and to round out the hand traps and the only trap in the main deck, there are 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Going to the side deck, there are 3 copies of the Homie DD Crow, 2 copies of Token Collector, the 1 of Called by the Grave, the 1 of Harpy's Feather Duster, returning to us after 16 years, 2 copies of Lightning Storm, 2 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison, as well as 2 copies of Survival End and 2 copies of Trap Trick. For the extra deck, there is 1 copy of Cyframe Lord Omega, 1 Abyss Dweller, triple copies of Dolka. This is something I don't think we've really seen in a lot of these lists, but if you guys do notice a lot of the dino lists that do choose to play Pot of Extrav, which is the majority of them, Dolka is usually the card that you're ending on after you break a board if you haven't OTK'd your opponent. Once you've broken their board, they're run out of resources, and you end on a Dolka with Ultimate Conductor, it's very hard for most decks to come back because Dolka is literally a solemn strike on legs, and the opponent is pretty much unable to play through that. So the triple copies of Dolka makes a lot of sense. There's a very low chance that you'll actually banish all of them off of Extrav. So I think this was a really cool call to actually main deck 3 copies. The 1 copy of Lagia, the 1 copy of Tornado Dragon. Onto the links, we got the Access Code Talker, obviously for OTKs. The Nightmares, we got Phoenix and Unicorn. And then for your your turn 1, either going first or going second, your play for UTC, you got the 2 copies of Link Kribo, as well as the 2 copies of Secure Gardener and the 1 copy of Cyframe Lord Lambda. So just works in conjunction with the Gamma, that if you do draw the Gamma afterward, you are still able to summon it if you need it for the interruption. We haven't seen this card in a while, so I really do like that they chose to play this as their generic Link 2. Now, as always, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, just choices in the deck that do stand out. So immediately to me, you guys should know it's going to be the hand trap selection. None of this should really come as a surprise. We do have Nibiru here, we do have Gamma here. They are obviously the best hand traps along with Impermanence. You guys may be wondering why only 2 copies. If you look in the side deck, with them playing Trap Trick, you basically have 4 copies of Impermanence if need be, and they decided to substitute other cards in place of it. Ash Blossom being the most generic, it makes sense. It probably will hit the most cards in the game, and then the rest of the deck is pretty much standard outside of the 2 copies of Mystic Mine. You know, we had to talk about it. This card is crazy. This card should not exist in the game, but I'm sure they were capitalizing on the fact that most decks these days do not main deck an out to Mystic Mine. You literally activate Mystic Mine against your opponent, they don't have an out in their main deck, you're literally going to game 2. And if you look at the fact that they're maxing out on Lost World and then they have the terraforming and the set rotation, they were always going to get to one of their fields. And if they did, if you did build a board, they baited your negate and you literally slap down Mystic Mine, you pretty much just win the game for free. So that was pretty crazy. Other things that kind of stand out in the side deck, DD Crow. We haven't seen DD Crow in a while, but this card is extremely impactful. It can hit Invoke Dogmatica, it can hit Dragon Link in certain ways, like you can literally hit the Phalanx and slow down their combos. There are a lot of things you can actually hit in this deck, which I like. Obviously, it's really good in the mirror match as well. Like you can banish problematic cards, your opponent can't get them off, so very, very strong. I think a lot of people were sleeping on DD Crow, and it's a hand trap we might see more people playing. Token Collector, obviously, for all the token generation that comes out of Dragon Link and Infernoble Knight, and the rest of the stuff is pretty standard as far as the one-ofs. I mean, they're at 1, you just hope to draw them. Back row removal and Lightning Storm. Ice Dragon's Prison has pretty much become a side deck staple. The card is just so good in multiple matchups this format, there's no reason not to play it. And since you're playing Trap Trick as well, it basically gives you extra copies. And then Survival's End, same thing. You can actually Trap Trick this out, which is nuts. I think a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of this trap selection, all of these trap selections are all basically searchable and activatable by Trap Trick, so that gives you extra copies without having to actually include them in your deck. So I really do like that. And then pretty much in the extra deck, like I said, everything is pretty much standard, and then access code is there just to finish games if you didn't finish games with Ultimate Conductor. Now, why do I think this deck won? I think this deck won because I want to go out on a limb and say that I think Dinosaurs is probably the second best deck of the format. People will argue, well, since it won, it should be number 1, but it's hard to say between this and Dragon Link what the better deck is. While Dragon Link is obviously one of the best decks, if not the best deck of the format, they put up a crazy board that most decks cannot play through. However, Dinosaurs can play those boards. All they have to do is bait the negates, and they can literally just slap Ultimate Conductor on the board and just destroy the entire field and win the game because of that. I think that is one of the main reasons why Dinos did so well. Number 2, I'd say it's because the deck is very consistent. They still have 3 Fossil Dig. Obviously, they have Pot of Extra. They have their searching and doing all their combos off Oviraptor. All they need is, a lot of times, they just need a baby to go off or open the 1-card combo, or if they open Oviraptor or a dig, they have multiple ways to get there. And I also think they can contribute a lot of their success to Lost World. There is no denying how powerful this field spell is. It does so much for the deck, and it's just such a problematic card. One thing I was discussing with one of my friends is that Dinos is one of the few decks that actually has a built-in out to Mystic Mine. Like, say they got Mystic Mine themselves, they literally can summon a Dino, get a token on the opponent's board, and it's pretty crazy. So I think that it's really cool that this deck has a built-in out, and the fact that Lost World exists makes it so that not only can they chain block a lot of the opponent's effects, but they can also just play through cards like Impermanence and Nibiru. So it's pretty nuts. I think that there's a lot of crazy things that this deck can do, and I really do like it. But overall, I think the deck was very well piloted. I think the deck is just very strong, and there's no denying that Mystic Mine, you know, probably played a big impact as to why this deck was so successful. The fact that you can just have an auto win in your deck going first or going second in game 1 is crazy, and then in game 2 and game 3, you might side them out. The opponent might side him back on removal, and it may not do much because all your traps are chainable. Trap Trick is chainable. You can get all your traps off and still just blow the opponent out of the water. I think overall this was an amazing meta call for the fact that it is one of the best decks. Instead of choosing to pick Dragon Link, they chose this deck because it's consistent and it's very powerful at what it does, and it can play against the best decks of the format and just get it off without having to worry about any other problems and losing to hand traps like other decks do. The deck plays well through hand traps. If you notice, there's no Droll and Lockbird, so that's very interesting. Like I said, when the other lists surface, it'll be interesting to see if they did play Droll anywhere in the side deck or in the main deck, for the fact that Droll does end a lot of opponents' turns. Droll is actually decent against this deck as well. It can stop Fossil Dig, it can stop Overraptor, it can stop a lot of things. But I think if you notice, the hand trap selection was on point, being some of the most impactful hand traps in the game. So I think that's very important to take into account as well. But overall, these are the reasons why I feel this team was very successful. This is the first 3v3 that they've done online through Luxury Gaming. So shout out to Luxury Gaming for hosting another amazing tournament. And shout out to these 3 players for winning this event. I think this is really going to take the meta and the market by storm, because I don't think anyone was expecting DINOSAURS to win. They expected them to top, but I don't think they expected them to win, and I don't think they expected all 3 players to be playing DINOSAURS. It says a lot to the power of this deck, this format. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Why do you feel DINOSAURS won this event? You can attribute it to them opening pretty broken. I watched the finals real quick. His hand was insane, so you know, there's a lot to say with how consistent and how powerful this deck is. But overall, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for